Hello and welcome to Business Today Television and the India Today studios here at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and with me a panel that comprises some of the best companies in India. To my immediate right, Mr. Jaydev Galla, the co-founder and the CMD of Amara Group. Amit Kalyani, Deputy Managing Director of Bharat Forge. Neeraj Kanwar, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Apollo Tyres, and Rajesh Jejurikar. He's the Executive Director for the auto and farm sectors at the Mahindra Group. Welcome. The dominant theme really at Davos here and in India, and I have had everyone say sustainability, greener future, and how Indian companies are transiting. In some ways, you are all connected with the broader auto industry, which is a great feature of pride for India in terms of what it has done. I'm starting with you, Rajesh. I believe you have also recently launched electric version of the XUV 400. I hope I haven't got that wrong. Does that represent your group's first initial steps or major steps into the electric mobility space?
Yeah, we've just launched XUV 400, announced the price on Monday. Actually did it while I was on my way here.
Same here, so I wasn't sure whether I've got that right.
Yeah, so you do have that right. It's not strictly comparable to its ICE version, which is XUV 300, because we've created a 4.2 meter version, so it in a way has a C segment size, very spacious. So it's not strictly comparable, though it kind of carries the name of XUV. So that's our first entry into the electric SUV segment. We're pretty bullish about it. It has many strong points. Most exciting for us is the acceleration, which is 0 to 100 in 8.3 seconds, which is actually faster than XUV 700, by the way.
So a quick point on why now? Is it part of the broader shift that's happening?
Yeah, so we think over the next 3 to 5 years, we will in the SUV segment start seeing quite a significant shift towards electric. For our own portfolio, our estimate is that in 2027, between 20 to 30% of our SUV volumes will be electric. So we're gearing up for a lot of investment and many new products in that space.
I'm glad you said that, because this sets the tone for the broader theme. Amit, I'm coming to you on the broader theme. You, as a company, have always spoken about decarbonization. Sometimes sounds like a lot of jargon, but you also put in money into renewable energy to build up significant capacity. What's the broader challenge and opportunity that emerges from this space?
So quite frankly, I think Indian companies are probably best positioned to become green and sustainable, for the one simple reason that renewable energy generation costs in India are amongst the lowest in the world. So we have invested to take our amount of renewable energy consumed already to close to 40%. We will exceed 75% by 2025, and by 2030 will be 100% in the component side. But even if you look at the material side, which is the steel side, we have already converted one of our steel plants to be 100% green. This year we will do about 35 to 40% of its output as green steel. Next year it will be 100% green. So it's doable, it's effective, and I think this is a great opportunity for India Inc.
Okay. Neeraj, I'm coming to you. You're a company which supplies all over the world with significant exposure to Europe. And energy prices and the disruption has caused a bit of chaos there. That also connects you to the green future. What's your own sense? Does this crisis in Europe spur them towards a much more greener future, which they have done significantly so far?
Well, energy prices have gone up in Europe at least 10 times of what they were. They've come down now drastically to at least 4 times. Yes, this does push us to go more green. As far as energy is concerned. Obviously, EV tires is a very important part that's going to play in all EV vehicles that are going to come out. Apollo has already come out with EV tires in India and in Europe. So that's another journey that we are going.
Question to interrupt. What's the difference between an EV tire and a conventional ICE?
No, it's a very good question. Now that it's battery operated, there's no engine noise. So the first is noise. The noise levels of a tire have to be very, very low. Rolling resistance plays a very important part. And then torque. You need much more torque in a EV tire. So there is upgradation happening in the plants for EV tires. And I see, obviously, there's a huge demand in Europe. And now with the likes of Mahindra, that demand is starting also in India.
Point about pricing. EVs are pricier than conventional vehicles, and that's a bit of a problem when it comes to purchase decisions. Yes. What about tire prices?
Slightly higher.
And when do they sort of go below conventional tires? If that's the right word.
Not in the near future. We need more. We need more volume.
You have a leg inside policy making also, and that's why you've heard three people from industry, and you yourself are an industrialist. In terms of the policy environment, what is needed to spur all Indian companies to actually become champions in this space? In the auto sector, without doubt, without reservation, we are one of the strongest in the world. Can India's auto sector also transition and become very strong in the e-mobility space?
You know, in the past, when asked about this question, I always use the chicken and egg analogy.
Okay.
Because, you know, there's three
you need to use the mic. Very sorry about that.
In the past, when I was asked this question, I always use the chicken and egg analogy. Because in this segment, you have the auto OEs, you have the battery manufacturers, and then you have the charging infrastructure that's required. No one can survive without the other two. And who has to invest first, right? And I always felt the battery manufacturers should be the last to invest because it's the highest capex and the biggest risk in terms of the business risks that we're taking. But I think the PLI scheme that the government has launched has set that to rest quite a bit. I think many people have responded, including us. Even though we are not successful in the PLI scheme, it's given us confidence to go ahead, even though we've not been successful in that bid. We're still going ahead with our giga plant plans because the entire sector has been spurred on by these initiatives of the government. So we see every OE coming out with so many vehicles and announcements of so many vehicles. All the giga plants that are being set up in North America and in Europe is also spurring us on, and I think the time is right now.
Okay. Rajesh, I want you to talk about the specific challenges that the Indian economy is going through, and we are practically just less than 2 weeks away from the budget. Rural demand, an issue, and we've seen a good year for the auto sector, but there are parts which are suffering. What are you looking forward to this year in terms of business?
Yeah, firstly, just recalibration of your statement, and okay. I would recalibrate to say actually that India is doing much better than the rest of the world.
Okay.
And we should all feel good about that.
Of course.
You talk to anyone around here, and anyone who is globally traveled and has been to India recently, will play out that this is the one part of the world where they sense a tremendous amount of positive optimism, and that is so. If you talk to any company in India, everyone's talking growth. Everyone's talking how quickly can you grow, what do we need to invest. That's not the mood around the world at the moment. Everybody is looking at what they can cut back, whereas all of us are talking about where do we find more talent, more people, who is going to fund our growth, so on and so forth. So I think there's a huge amount of optimism right now the way industry is looking at the future. To your specific question on the budget, my overall thinking is that the government will, I'm sure, do things which will spur consumption. What we need in the country is positive sentiment. This is a country which buys on sentiment. And when the mood is positive and the sentiment is positive, consumerism goes up. And really, I hope the budget will continue that momentum of building a very positive mood to buying. The country is, ahead on significant things which we should all be leveraging. The Digital India and
right.
The huge use of digital in everything in the payment process are all very important building blocks, and that's creating a lot of attractiveness from everyone around the world to come in and invest in India. Amit's earlier point on renewables and energy availability and the pace at which India is thinking of moving to clean green energy, I don't think it's going to happen anywhere else in the world. So there's a lot of positive optimism with which we get into the budget.
Amit, the same point on global headwinds, and just to add to what Rajesh said, 2 surveys released here itself. One, the World Economic Forum chief economist, who said a majority, well over 75%, expect a recession this year. a PwC survey which had a healthy component of Indian CEOs, which crucially shows, and that's Rajesh's point, that Indian CEOs are far less pessimistic than their global counterparts. Is the global and advanced economy business environment going to be a challenge for Indian business in this year?
So let me answer your question in 2 points. One is, I see opportunity and adversity. If the rest of the world is going to have issues, already companies, if you look at manufacturing and especially the automotive manufacturing landscape for the component side, 70% of the output of components that goes into automotive in Europe is Mittelstand, which is companies from 100 to 5, 6, 700 million euros in sales. These companies are already very stressed because of the 2 years of COVID and then all the supply chain issues. Now with energy and inflation and interest rate rises, they are even more stressed. I think there was a report by CRIF, which is a credit rating agency in Germany, which said that 17,000 German firms are expected to go bankrupt this year, and it will increase by another 4% next year. So obviously, even if these firms go bankrupt, it doesn't mean that cars are going to stop being produced. Somebody has to produce the components that go into them. And we expect that that is an opportunity for Indian companies to capitalize on, to export output. Secondly, if there is global deflation, I think is the best opportunity for India to accelerate its infrastructure build. Because if you look at our telecom infrastructure, we didn't have layered costs of telecom. Therefore, we went from zero to hero in mobile telephony. So you don't have layered costs. When you don't have layered costs and legacy costs, then you can provide a service at the lowest cost possible of the highest quality. I was on a panel with the CTO of Ericsson. He said India has already surpassed Europe on 5G.
He sat right here.
Okay, he said the same thing. And he said by June we will surpass the rest of the world except China on 5G. That's unbelievable. People have to realize what is happening in our country and what the opportunity is. So all the infrastructure lag that we've had can become a biggest advantage of spurring our growth.
Viewers, here is evidence and two CEOs back to back who told us why Indian CEOs are far less pessimistic and therefore far more optimistic than their global partners. Neeraj, on the point of Europe, you know as much as any Indian CEO would. How good or bad is it going to be for us?
I think I agree with both of them that India is on a growth path. I think we just have to keep doing things the right way, not panic, because the world is panicking. And rightly said, the sentiments of our Indian citizens is very, very important. The government is doing all what they can in terms of putting a lot of money behind infrastructure, and that's going to fuel growth, tremendous growth. As far as
Highways mean less wear and tear of tires?
no, it actually means more.
Okay.
Because goods will be
explain
more.
that. Yeah.
Goods will be more. Mileage run on the roads will be much more.
Yes.
Speeds will go higher. So wear and tear will be much more. So that's good news for tire people, just for your information. But no, as far as Europe is concerned, I see inflation has already peaked. Energy prices, like I said, have started coming down. Oil prices have come down from 120 to crude is today at $81 a barrel. So I see things softening now as far as input prices are concerned in Europe.
So another 6 months of
It's going to be challenging for the next 6 months. One just has to wait, rough it out. OEMs are also down in Europe, and so we just have to just go along with the economy.
You have a major investment that is planned in Telangana and creating a lot of jobs. Do you feel as confident as the rest of the people here on the panel and beyond that?
Absolutely. I think, initially when COVID first hit with the severe lockdown that we faced, we were one of the most highly impacted economies in the world. But I think once things opened up, we recovered very fast. And now that China is having that moment, China's loss is India's gain, I would say. I mean, people are fed up with lack of transparency and also lack of scientific approach to solving some of these problems, which India has shown that we can take a very scientific approach in a very calculated manner and recover very quickly. And I think that the government's focus on attracting those opportunities to India has been very good. The incentives have been excellent. The states have also contributed quite well in competing with each other to get the investments into their state. And as far as the economy is concerned, what may, India will continue to grow at 6 to 8%, at least for the next 10 years. I'm very confident about that.
I'm glad you're saying that. Rajesh, I'm going to ask you a question that's not necessarily a macro question as we wind down this conversation. This is about long waiting periods. Can you tell our viewers, especially for your product portfolio, including the Scorpio, which I'm not sure how long a waiting list it has the situation improved?
The first thing I want to say is we are not happy about long waiting periods. So, at one time, when you get a lot of bookings, you feel really good because it's an indication that customers have loved your offering. But it's not a good situation for that to persist. For the Scorpio, and it's still a long waiting period. I think maybe like a year and a half. We did get a lot of bookings. We've put out our capacity enhancement plan, and we're moving from our SUV portfolio. Will be moving from something like what was 18,000 per month volume a year and a half, year odd back to what we're doing right now, 30, and then we're going to move up another 10,000 capacity to about 40,000 by the next year same time. So there's a significant investment we made in ramping up capacity. Just to clarify, this is not so much in our plants as much as in the whole supply chain network where the capacity shortages come in. Semiconductor continues to be a very closely watched thing. It's every month we have a surprise on something which you never thought could be going wrong.
And Indian-made chips are still several years away. We've had some announcement, but it will take time to translate.
Yes, and so these are all tier 2, tier 3 suppliers of our tier 1, and it's very hard to risk mitigate everything. So you do get new surprises. So that's all part of what I think all OEMs are dealing with, and all our supplier partners as well. It's a day-to-day management of supply chain of a kind we've never seen in our careers.
Okay. Rajesh, before you pass on the mic, just one last bit. We've focused more on the SUV part, but you have a very good understanding of the pulse of the rural economy, also through the products that you sell. How is it looking like?
Honestly, I think the rural economy surprised me positively. We were far more pessimistic for this year on the rural, our tractor sales, and the industry growth has been much better than what we. So when we started the year, we said low single digits, like 0 to 3. By the time we've got to mid-year, we said 5+. It clearly is going well above that. Based on how sales have been till December.
Double digits likely?
No, it's I guess too early to say that, and we won't put out a number that we don't share with everybody. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble from a governance standpoint. So I'm not putting out any number. But the festival season was a very positive surprise. Industry growth in December, which is normally a low month, also has been a very positive surprise. So we are actually seeing a reasonably positive rural economy. I know it's stressed at the low end of the purchasing stream, FMCG, but at least for high value items like tractors, it's been a positive surprise.
My last question to the rest of my panelists, and Amit, if you permit me, just that one thing that you are looking forward to, either in the budget or otherwise, in terms of a policy move which you would say will make you happy. I had someone who said that there are 1,300 compliances that particular sector faces, and he wished that it would go down. I don't know what's on your wish list, but do share whatever you can.
So clearly, ease of doing business is something that we hope becomes more and more clear. Single window, and if you don't get a response, deemed approval has to become the norm. I think one area where we need to start spending more money is on the environment. If you look at our cities are really degrading from a pollution, waste point of view. I think that itself is a big business opportunity and a quality of life improvement opportunity, and one which will create more positivity, as Rajesh mentioned, in the cities. And, don't hesitate in spending money on viable capex projects at a government level. I think that's really something that's a
very important point that Amit makes, because there have just been reports that India has probably surpassed China in its population. So, along with many other firsts, that's also something to reckon with. The same question to you, Neeraj.
Well, I think I agree with Amit on ease of doing business. I have an experience of putting up a plant in Hungary vis-a-vis putting up a plant in India. And I can tell you the ease of doing business in Hungary was far, far, far better.
How soon did you manage to do it in Hungary versus
This
India?
was 12 months versus
From
30 months.
From scratch to...
From scratch to
And that was like
new
a
production.
greenfield project you
Total
did?
greenfield. I'm talking apple to apple. The other area
And
which...
in India, sorry, you didn't give me the comparative
I said
number.
30 plus months.
30 plus
Yeah,
months,
so
okay.
it is very difficult to do business, some parts of India. The other area is the knowledge bank that India has today. The young knowledge bank that's coming out, how can we incentivize them? And I know there's a digital age and the Prime Minister is doing a lot. I think a lot more can be done to fuel this knowledge bank. So how do you take this knowledge and create it and implement them into startups, which is going to be the next digital age for India?
Okay. Jaydev, if you were a policy maker, what is that one big thing you would do the moment you had the ability to sign that document?
The list is long, so it's difficult. The list is long, so it's difficult to say that one thing. But certainly, I think it's high time that the next generation of economic reforms do see the light of day. We've been seeing incremental improvements, but we've not seen any big bang change in terms of economic reforms since '91. So I'd like to see the next generation of big bang reforms come into place.
Okay.
Second thing is that in India, while we've made a lot of progress in many different ways, product development, research and development in general, and Indian brands growing in certain segments like electronics and information technology products is still lagging behind, even though we're a powerhouse. Absolutely. So I'd like to see that improve. And specifically, more specifically to my business, I'd like to see some fine-tuning of the PLI schemes.
Fine-tuning of the PLI schemes. Viewers, this is the first time in 3 days I've had the sun warm me here. And I know my panel, who is pressed for time, also have enjoyed some bit of the sun. And I'm glad that they have shared a sunny, optimistic outlook in the midst of a lot of pessimism here. Rajesh, Amit, Neeraj, Mr. Galla, thank you very much for your time. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. If you've been, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.